Well, good morning, everyone, and again, welcome. I want to start off today by showing you a picture and asking you what you see. Take a look at this picture here. What is that? Any guesses? Chocolate, perhaps? Ooh, maybe it's a brain or a heart? What is that? Oh, now we're seeing it. Anybody got it yet? It's an old dude. That picture there is a picture of a man who was called Meister Eckhart. And I told you I would tell you what Meister means. Meister means master. He was a professor at the University of Paris, which is, anyone know where that is? Paris, but where's Paris? Francais, yes, that's correct. The person in this picture is who we're studying this morning in this series called The Ancients. And what you just experienced with those pixels zooming out, that is his lesson for us still today. Eckhart was a Dominican professor who lived during one of the most chaotic periods in church history. The papacy had fled Rome for, of all places, France. Rival popes were excommunicating each other, and religious authority was fracturing everywhere. And into this crisis, Meister Eckhart begins teaching something that is terrifying to the church leadership of his time as they go through their power struggles. Eckhart suggested that people keep missing the divine presence in their lives, not because it's too far away, but because it is so close. Like staring at a single pixel and not being able to make out what it is because you're not seeing the bigger picture. The church investigated him for heresy. Some of his teachings were condemned, and he probably would have been executed if he hadn't died before his trial concluded. So why was he so dangerous? What was he teaching? What did he believe? Well, Eckhart's most radical claim is that God doesn't just create people and then stop managing them. God doesn't even create people and then just manage them from a distance. In fact, God is continuously present within in every instance of your life, especially in your very worst moments. You're not just God's creature trying to get back into relationship with your Creator. You are God's location in this world. You're like a human pin. Where you are, God is. This location Eckhart called the divine spark. The divine isn't something we occasionally connect with during worship. Did you know that? The divine is what makes us consider even worshiping at all. Eckhart looked at all of the religious seeking of his time, the pilgrimages, the elaborate prayers, the theological debates, the spiritual disciplines. And he said something that still resonates. You are seeking God with God's own lantern. What did he mean by that? He meant that the very capacity to seek God at all comes from God at work in you. Not from a desire that you conjure up on your own through incantations or prayers. And you can see why this would make church authorities very nervous. There's already a power struggle going on at the very top, and it's trickling down to the rest of the church. And Eckhart is pondering and teaching things like, if God is intimately present within ordinary human consciousness, then what's the point of a religious hierarchy at all? Why do I need a priest to mediate between me and God? Why is there someone that's closer to God than I am? He wasn't trying to eliminate the church. He was trying to get it to remember something that had been lost. His teaching implied that real spiritual action wasn't happening only in cathedrals, but also in the depths of human awareness in peasants and professors alike. And the church had the awesome privilege of handling that message and disseminating that message to people. But it had turned into something else. He said a phrase that I think of all the time. He said, God is at home. We are abroad. Here's what I find most challenging about Eckhart's teachings. They ask nothing of people except to stop asking so much of ourselves spiritually. And I hate that kind of stuff, those kind of paradoxical statements. If you want to go forward, you got to go backward. If you want to hold on to something, let it go. If you want to lift something up, push it down. Give your back a lift. Don't lift with your back, whatever. I hate that stuff. Nevertheless, I think he's right about this. What would it look like if churches everywhere took this message seriously? What if the role of the church isn't to mediate between God and people? Siri is responding to me.
Jesus Christ as Lord and Savior and to live their daily lives in light of their relationship.
That's so creepy. Please stop, Siri. I've never had that happen before. That's what Siri thinks the purpose of the church is. Eckhart believed that the church did not have a role to mediate between God and people. Rather, its role was to remind them how close God already is. What if every church on this planet began to recognize how special their gatherings could truly be? If they stopped focusing on numbers and focused instead on the glory of God walking in those doors on Sunday mornings. What if every church on earth had gatherings that felt like safe places for people to stop performing spiritually and instead learning how to authentically respond to grace? What if every church in the world cared for people in a way that was more about presence and not promotion? Are we ever going to see a Christian again, since social media has come, that actually does something nice without filming themselves? That's not what we're supposed to be doing. What if the church was just filled with people that were trying to be quiet, unnoticed, reliable presences for others when disaster strikes them? That is a different kind of church than people like me are taught to build in college. Why? Because it doesn't have anything to do with ambition. It doesn't have anything to do with being successful. It doesn't have anything to do with having one's name known. In fact, oftentimes when we do the right things, it feels unsustainable. because it doesn't follow the patterns of this world. And Eckhart still today is asking us to question that. He would say that the church's job is very simple. Just point people to the God that is already there. Let me ask you a crazy question that will probably make you think I've lost my mind. If we can't see air, human beings, does that mean that fish can't see water? Think about that for a second. If we can't see air, does that mean that fish can't see water in their environment? And if we can see water and fish can't, does that mean that fish can see air? What do you think? Why am I asking this? Just to watch you be uncomfortable? No, I have a point. Think about that for a second. Both fish and people live and move and exist because of this thing that surrounds them. It is within them. It saturates every cell. It's in every atom. Yet they can't see it, but they are sustained by it, but completely unaware of it. And that's the work that Meister Eckhart is still calling us to even today. Not doing something, but becoming so aware of something that you have no choice but to live out of that love and that sustenance and that guidance. He wrote, "If you seek God, you will not find God. If you do not seek God, you will not find God. But if you recognize that your seeking itself is God seeking through you, then there's nowhere that God is not." This isn't theology you believe, it is a reality that you embody, that you step into with your mind and with your heart. You deliberately make the choice to look at God that way. Why? Because that's what Scripture says that God is. In closing this morning, as I was writing this week, I thought of all the countless meetings I've had in my life over my career with lots of people who are struggling with many difficult things. And I enter these gatherings always prepared to listen, offer advice if need be, and most of all, just to be a helpful presence in someone's life. But sometimes something strange happens when I meet with people. Every now and then, I'm meeting with a person and I find myself having very little to say, not because something didn't need to be said, but because they're already saying it for me. They aren't blaming anyone for their problems. They are owning their responsibility in their problems. They aren't trying to be right or to prove anyone wrong. Their only concern in the entire drama is to find a way forward where everyone involved can have the most peace possible. And sometimes people like this come to me seeking answers. But the truth is that they already have them because they're good people. And often good people have a genius for, convincing themselves that the love that they show everyone else is not a love that they're worthy of themselves. That's a very real pattern. But what I see in these people that come in from time to time is that God is already working in their wisdom and in their honesty and even in their regrets before they walked into my office. I don't help anyone find God in meetings like these. I only sit and marvel at the God who is already there working. And all that the person needs to hear is, this sucks right now, yes. It hurts. It's chaotic. I know you can't stay on top of it, but I can see that you're listening to God right now. I can see that you're asking the right questions, you're pursuing the right things. God is working in you right now in the middle of this disaster. And so in these meetings, I realize that the best thing I can do is to become a witness, not a rescuer. And that's exactly what Eckhart still asks of us. Not to be a person with all the answers. Not to be some spiritual hero that destroys their sanity trying to save everyone. But just to be the observer. Just to be the witness. And notice where God is already working. And marvel. My heart breaks so deeply that the church has made all of this about something that it's not. When will we ever get it into our skulls that God's presence isn't the reward for successful spirituality? God's presence is our natural state. It is our home in this world away from home. And in these hours where fear and bewilderment are not dominating the headlines and hijacking what little peace we have left, when we're living in a city that is hunting people, when we have a federal government that's posting ads on Instagram inviting boys to become ICE agents. That's why this message matters now more than ever. Because that kid signing up to be an ICE agent, for whatever reasons, for whatever need he's trying to meet in himself, God is in that person too. And unless I believe that God is just as unless I believe that I am just as valuable to God as someone else, I won't ever look at other people properly. Unless I believe God lives in my enemies, there will always be a breaking point where I say, that's it, that's too far. Now we're going to fight. And that's not the world that any of us want. But our awareness of who we truly believe people to be, especially those we disagree with, comes out in our actions. We are not competitors for limited grace, but shared expressions of the same presence. If we would only take that to heart. This is Eckhart's gift to us, this message, prompting us to have courage to see the sacred in the ordinary and the divine in the difficult, and God in one another. As you go out into the world this week, and you see families being hauled away in cars, as you go out into the world this week, and people judge you and call you soft and call you weak because you're a person of compassion, be proud of yourself. Be more proud of being that than the evil in this world is proud of what it's doing. Connect with people. Make eye contact. Reach out your hand, even if they hate you. Show them more good than they show you evil. That's the only way this gets better. When we realize that there is one God divided into billions of parts, and those parts are called human beings. Let's pray.